And we're back. Good afternoon, folks. You lot asked for Andrew, and I'm happy to say I've delivered. How you doing, my guy? You all right?
Hey, man. How are you? How's everyone out there today?
I'm good, man. I'm good, man. And I have to say, big up yourself, man. I saw your video, 24 years of Arseblog. It's crazy, isn't it, man? Like, I wanted to ask you, like, how does it feel? Because it's been a long time. It's probably flown by. Like, what made you start, and how do you feel going through all those years to what you got going on now, man?
I'd love to say it flew by. A lot's happened in 24 years, dude. Listen, I started it as a sort of experiment in web design, and it's grown into something that, like I said in the video, when I started, there was no social media, there were no podcasts, there was no YouTube, there was no anything, no apps. There was email and websites, and that was it, So it's come a long way, and I suppose the thing that stands out, I guess, is that you have to sort of adapt, as you go and ensure that what you do is available on the platforms people want it to be on,
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, listen, I was a much younger man when it all kicked off, so I feel the years a bit right now.
That fine wine, my boy.
Thank you, my friend, but feeling it a bit this season. It's been quite stressful, but we're in good shape, and hopefully, we can kick this over the line, and we can all celebrate in May.
You said it there, man, and you alluded to it, about celebrating in May. But obviously, it's been a minute since we've spoken. What's the temperature like with you as an Arsenal fan at the moment? Because we're in all four comps, we've done a lot of well. There's obviously things we need to improve. There's obviously outside noise that is quite ridiculous and a level of gaslighting. But before we get into that, like, how are you feeling about like where we're at the moment, where we've come from, and with it all to play for?
I'm sort of excited and terrified in equal measure.
Yep.
It's I think if you step back and look at it objectively, this is a team that's, how many games have we played this season? 40 odd, 45 games already, and it's only the start of March, and we've lost 3 times. This is a team that's, and I don't want to tempt fate or cause us any bad luck, so I'm going to touch wood and keep my fingers crossed, but typically this is a team that's very difficult to beat. At the same time, I think we can all look at the team and have little worries about certain aspects of how certain games have gone, or how we've performed, or who's scoring or not scoring. I think those are perfectly valid concerns, so it's sort of a bit of a roller coaster ride to an extent. Every game feels so intense, like I'm sure
really.
Yeah, you and everybody watching, I'm sure, went through it on Sunday against Chelsea, right? Where pre-game you're excited, you're looking for the team to put in a big performance, but ultimately you just want them to win, right? That's all you want, is just to win. And then that's what we did. But the point between the first whistle and the last whistle in the game is like, you've got to go through some stuff to get to that point and to enjoy that win. Exactly. He said it before, hasn't he, Mikel Arteta, that we need to suffer. We need to, I think he talks about, that in the context of putting in the effort in certain games and what have you. But I think as fans, I think we are, it sounds crazy to say it, given we're top of the league and what we've done in the Champions League. We're still in the FA Cup and still we're in the EFL Cup final. It has felt a little bit like suffering, and maybe that's a very privileged position to be in, very much a first world problem. Definitely. But I don't think it changes that reality for us, right? It is what it is. Our experience is our experience this season, and I don't think it's right to sort of police how people are feeling. Some people will be like, this is great. Other people are like, until we get it done and get it over the line, they're going to be like, I think that's perfectly fine. Wherever you are on that spectrum of hope or optimism, or glass half full, glass half empty, I think that's perfectly fine. Because
your football, I guess.
Yeah, listen, this club has put us through some stuff in the last number of years. It's 20 odd years since we won the title, right?
Exactly. And still technically counting. Hopefully we do it.
But think of all the things that have happened in that time, and the things that we have had to experience and endure. They all play a part in where we are now. And, like I said, objectively, it's great where we are, and we're very, very good. And I hope that we, can add the silverware that I think this team and this manager deserve for the consistency they've shown over the last number of years. But until we get there, until we get there, it's going to be another couple of months of sort of
Yep.
biting our fingernails, keeping our fingers crossed, whatever other analogy you want to make. It's just something we're going to have to go through, but hopefully it's worth it in the end and we can all have a big party.
Exactly, like you said, a big party. I mean, we'll get into it, but I don't really care if we play sensational football. We, set piece our way to the trophies because, the goalposts always move. We just want to win. You said it yourself. I think the fans deserve it. I think the players deserve it. I think the gaffer deserves it. I think you said it perfectly. I think this is first world problems now. Like, we wanted to be in this realm with, what are City doing? What are we doing? We're still in all comps, which it's not surreal, but it is in the sense that we've obviously handled business. We deserve to be there, but it's almost surreal that, when you remove in isolation what we have to play for and you kind of nitpick at the negatives and the positives and whatnot, it provides a mixed bag, which is why I make you right where you said you can't really police how people feel, because as much as I like to enjoy the ride, I understand some fans are at that point where they just want to see it over the line now, really and truly. And that leads me to ask you, like, where are you at with our players being nervous and potentially our fans specifically at games? Because a lot has been made of Arsenal fans traveling, obviously at the Emirates. There was obviously that scene with Timber telling everyone to calm down. Where are you at on that?
Again, listen, I think you, as a fan, when you're in the stadium, you react to what's going on the pitch, right?
Exactly.
If Arsenal are winning a game 4-0, everyone is in great form and nobody needs to be told to calm down. When you're winning a game 2-1 against a big London rival and it's maybe not quite going the way you want, your reaction as a fan, listen, you've 60,000 people in there and everybody's kind of different in their own way. And you've got that spectrum. But, I know that if I was sitting there and it's 2-1 and somebody plays a bad pass or whatever, I'm going to react to that in a sort of like, oh, come on, wake up here, guy, that kind of way. Somebody else might say, come on, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. I think, Arteta talks a lot about the need for fans and the need for support, and I get it completely. I really, really do. And I think there are times when the crowd can be super helpful to a team. I also think, first and foremost, though, fans react to what happens on the pitch. That is just human nature for me. Like, you can be the biggest, most positive supporter in the world. What are you going to do if Arsenal are 3-0 down? I mean, you can stand there and clap and go, come on, guys. But what difference is it going to make, really?
You can't deny what's in front of you with your eyes.
Absolutely. So, at the end of the day, for me, it's always up to the players to set the tone. That's why, if we're at home and the team starts fast and we make a couple of chances and someone puts in a big tackle,
fans are excited and they're kind of confident.
Everybody's in. But if the opposition have the ball for the first 5 minutes and they have a couple of shots, or if they score a goal in the first 5 minutes, what way are people supposed to react to that? So I think it's normal. It wouldn't be normal if people weren't nervous. It wouldn't be normal if the players weren't feeling a bit nervous. What I think is quite interesting, though, is I think when the final whistle went on Sunday against Chelsea, we stop and we think and we start to analyze that performance, right? We think about what could we have done better? Should we have done better against 10 men? Yes, we should have done better against
1,000,000%.
No question about it. So we go on our blogs or podcasts or forums or social media or whatever it is, however, your WhatsApp groups, whatever way you want to talk about the game with your mates, and you talk about it and you analyze it and you pick things apart. I bet you those players after the game were like, okay, that was tough. Maybe it wasn't great, but we won. And now we forget about it and we move on. And I think the nervousness lives a bit more in us than it does in the players, because they will see that as a really tough game against a good side, a good Chelsea side. And they came out with 3 points. And for them, that's where they will take the confidence and the belief that, they'll say, well, we didn't play our best. We certainly didn't play as well as we should play with 10 men or against 10 men. We still won, though. So they'll yeah, exactly. It's sort of the counterpoint to our nervousness is them going, actually, you know what? We can play better. And if we play better, we've got a better chance of winning our next game. So I don't think it feeds into the psyche of the players as much as it does to the fans.
It's a weird one because, like, if you mention like the certain, I don't want to say negatives, but negatives in the Chelsea game at home, definitely when we drop points to Wolves. I feel this season, like the good, bad, and the ugly, I've kind of seen the same kind of things with our football club. So, like, I don't think I think it'd be naive if I just start putting it down to nerves and things like that. I get it because of the climate of the season. We're in the business end of it. When you start seeing mistakes or certain other concerns, yeah, it's easy to say the pressure's getting to them. And as you've basically been saying, it should. You're human. Take the good, take the bad, relish it really and truly. And this is what makes football what it is. And I wanted to ask you as well, because for me, there's a lot of things from last season and this year that I don't feel is clicked into gear. I don't subscribe to we play boring football and all of that, but I wouldn't say we've been at our free flowing best. I don't feel I've seen a level of consistency from our attacking unit that I would have. But at the end of the day, like as you said, we're still in all comps, we're ticking over, we're fighting for the league. Like, if you feel that way, or if not, like at this point of the season, do you think that will ever quite click, or is it kind of it is what it is until the end of the year, and that's kind of next season's for something to address?
Yeah, I think at this point, what have we got? 9 games left in the Premier League. I think it is what it is. Which isn't to say that somebody might not hit form, Saka or, Kai Havertz if he comes back, or maybe Martinelli, or, one of those players might go on a run where it sort of skews our attacking numbers and attacking effectiveness in a really positive way, and we might and probably will need that between now and May for somebody to really catch fire, if that's the right way of putting it. But there's a weird sort of, I agree with you about our attack. When you look at the raw numbers from our attacking players, particularly of late, they're not great, but nobody scored more goals than Arsenal in the Premier League. I find it, it's just one of those mad things where I don't think too many people would argue. Nobody is going to say that this Arsenal attack is really firing us to the title, right? How can it? Trossard hasn't scored since December in the league.
There's a lot of coldness from everyone.
There's a lot, exactly. There's the numbers. When you just look at the numbers for most of our attacking players, they're not great, and certainly below what we expect from them. And yet, nobody has scored more goals.
So what does that say about us and about everyone else?
Yeah, well, it might say something about everyone else. It might say something about maybe it's a bit more sustainable to share the goals around. But at the same time, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, to give ourselves a better chance of winning the league, we need more from these players.
Everyone can go up the gears.
Yeah, exactly. Even if those numbers aren't great and we still have scored more, I look at it as a slight bit of a problem, So it's something I think we're just going to have to deal with between now and the end of this season. Maybe there's a way for Mikel Arteta to get a bit more out of his team, or, change things up from an attacking perspective. We do have some injuries, of course. Havertz has been injured most of the season.
Need him to stay fit.
Yeah, Odegaard is out. Trossard isn't scoring really at the moment. Martinelli's only got 1 goal in the league all season long.
Crazy.
Gabriel Jesus, he scored a couple since he came back, but basically both of those goals were the 4th goal when we were already 4-0 up.
Yeah, we've already done the business.
So and it's to take nothing away, but that's where we are with him. So I think there is hopefully a bit more to come, but the idea, I think, that Arsenal all of a sudden as a team are just going to click and become this smooth, silky attacking force, I don't think that's going to happen. We are what we are this season.
Yeah, exactly that. It would have happened by now. Which, fingers crossed, I'm proven wrong, but it kind of is what it is for me, Andrew, man.
Yeah, I mean, but we're very effective at what we are. We're good at being what we are. And I think maybe what it is there is a desire perhaps from outside, and maybe some Arsenal fans, and, a lot of people have grown up with, the best Arsene Wenger teams and the kind of football that they played, right? And I was one of those people, and I love to see that kind of attacking football. But I can't deny that this Arsenal team is exceptionally effective at getting results, even if there are certain aspects of the game which aren't quite to everybody's taste.
So results-driven business.
Well, that's exactly it. And if we get over the line, and if we win the Premier League this season, you will not hear me complain. You won't hear any of it. I mean, well, there will be people complaining, of course. This just I know. Listen, I agree with you, but there's going to be some guy out there or more than one guy out there going, yeah, Arteta, yeah, he only got over the line because of set pieces or whatever it is.
Stop the corners then. Stop letting us build them.
You can't say on the one hand that like we've got to win the trophy, we've got to win the Premier League, but then we didn't. There's no extra prize for artistic merit, right? You don't get style points in the Premier League, and the reality is that for quite a while under Arsene Wenger, we played lovely football but didn't win anything.
Exactly. That's what led, ironically, that's what led to Wenger's demise. In that when he started at Arsenal, he was ahead of the game. He was innovative. He had certain things he wanted to introduce that the world didn't catch up. And unfortunately, whether it was on the field or working with agents and things of that ilk, like what got him here didn't keep him in the job. And as much as it kills me to say, people love to say they loved it. We're a soft touch. We're weak. Yeah. We're this, we're that. I think people are just they don't hate corners. They don't hate negative football. It's just the fact that the people who used to get bullied are now the bullies at it. And what jars me is when people sit there and say people ruin football. Arsenal's one team out of the 20 in the Premier League. We've got 16 corners that we've scored. In a day and age, there's probably 100 odd in the Premier League. People don't look at our touches in the yacht box, which me and you were just talking. We want to see us convert these kind of opportunities, but we're generating corners. And it's not our fault if you can't stop or mitigate against the numerous routines that the coaching staff have, if you can't defend against the same, the second ball. And what is annoying is that is the day and age of the game now. Like games are not entertaining. It's all about the collective versus the individuals. There's all inverted fullbacks and all of that. And both teams cancel each other out. As much as I want to see attacking football, I've criticized Arteta generally of our ability to break down sides. So if a low block can be broken down by a set piece, it makes them want to come out. Great stuff. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And this whole entertaining thing, why should we entertain the world? Like, obviously, if we play boring football and don't win, then internally at Arsenal, we need to ask ourselves what we're doing. But I just find it quite jarring. And that's something I should let me ask you about. Like, what do you make of the media sentiment? Because I think it's quite shameful, if I'm honest with you, in the sense that, like 2-3 weeks on the spin, we're scoring from open play, which we're up there, as you said, for that. We get back to scoring from set pieces, in which Arsenal and Chelsea scored from that. And they were really the only chances. And now it's set piece FC, it's this, that, and the other, where other teams are starting to benefit from it. Liverpool have improved at that. United have improved at it. It's annoying.
Listen, there's a reason why we are the best at set pieces in corners. It's because, and I wrote about this during the week, Mikel Arteta, I think, correctly identified the need to maximize every aspect of the game. And I drew a line back to the Brentford game. Do you remember the Brentford game in the season where we had loads of people missing with COVID and we lost 2-0, and one of their goals came from either a corner or a long throw? I can't remember what it was. And Bernd Leno got bumped out of the way and everyone was going, well, the goalkeeper's got to be stronger there. And I think
he's having to Ramsdale every week as well.
I think that is Mikel Arteta's set piece origin story. That day,
I make you right.
When he saw what happened and he said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to build a team that can withstand that, but I'm also going to build a team that can inflict that kind of pain on other teams. I absolutely believe that. And it took a while to get there. I think as well, he sort of recognized the fact that in the Premier League, you have the best coaches in the world. The money means you've got the best players in the world. Doesn't mean there aren't good players elsewhere. Of course there are, but generally speaking,
in all aspects.
Generally speaking, your bottom of the table in the Premier League team has the ability to put together a squad that is far higher quality than, let's say, a team that's down the bottom of Liga or La Liga or the Bundesliga, 100%. Because they simply have that much money. So you have tactical developments. You have a raising of standards from top to bottom in the Premier League. Organization, discipline, tactics, the way teams are organized. Nobody's a pushover anymore. Look at what Wolves have done in the last couple of weeks, right? Everyone's sort of like, I don't think it was a good result for us at Wolves. Of course it wasn't. But it's probably not a coincidence that Wolves have just taken points off Arsenal, Liverpool, and Aston Villa. Because they're just not terrible. Like, they're maybe the worst team they might not even be the worst team in the league at this moment in time.
Yeah, but they got down the road in current form.
Yeah, exactly. They had a really terrible start to the season. But what I'm saying is that that's a great example of how these so-called smaller teams can cause you problems, right? So if you're playing a team and you're Arsenal, and everybody recognizes that as Arsenal, you're a really good team. Who's going to come to the Emirates, or who's going to allow Arsenal to come to their place and just say, you know what, we're going to play a high line. We'll play on the halfway line, and we'll give them all this space to put. It just
it's suicidal. It'd be stupid because when teams open up against us, we've blitzed them, which is probably different, but that's probably been our case so far in the Champions League. Maybe it's not because Spurs wanted to play open. They actually tried to be defensively minded. They're just poor. That's what we want. Every Arsenal fan's been crying for that. You're bang on, man.
You know, and how do you deal with that then? If goals from open play become more difficult to score, which is a consequence of how football has gone, who's the idiot that doesn't look at set pieces as a way of trying to offset some of that? You know what I mean? And the other thing I'll say is that you don't get a corner from playing in your own half.
And this, please continue, Andrew, because I'm happy someone else is going to say this.
Well, I mean, that's all I have to say about it, is that you don't just get a corner randomly at some point in the game. Why do you get a corner? Because you've played the ball and you've put them in under pressure. It's a cross that's blocked behind. You're making them defend. Someone's got to head it over the bar. You know, you are making them defend in a last-ditch manner, because if they have time to defend, they put their foot through the ball and the ball goes halfway up the pitch, or it goes out for a throw, right? But last-ditch defending means corners, and that means you're putting pressure on them, and it means you're playing the game in their half, in their final third. And if we're really good at that, as well as being really good at corners, it's
be stupid not to marry the two together. You'd be absolutely silly, really.
Of course, you know. And what happens if you're not good at set pieces? You know, you lose games in this day and age. Managers lose jobs and fans lose faith. To me, it's just the most absurd criticism. I think, you know, where there is probably a legitimate discussion to be had is like, how do we stop corners becoming like mud wrestling? WWE.
Mud wrestling, WWE. I saw Man United, Everton. Obviously, Man United did it against us. You got to look at the goal Timber scored. Saliba's being bear hugged. We obviously do it. Everybody's bending the rules as they should. You know, Slot's been crying. Moyes has cried. Carrick's cried. But their teams have all improved at set pieces. Arteta has moaned about it and got better at it. It's a necessary evil in this game.
I agree, you know, but I think there is probably, you know, I don't know how they fix it or what they do. There is probably some discussion to be had about, you know, how players are able to hold each other. And
100%.
It does look at times, it looks a bit more NFL than football, right? You know, where it's blocking, it's holding, it's obstructing, and it's basically unrefereeable. Because if you look at one player and say, actually, that could be a penalty, there's another player being pulled down by somebody else, or David Raya having his foot stood on by a Chelsea player. You know what I mean?
We would one against us as well.
If you're going to you could give 3 penalties every corner, or you could give 3 free kicks to the defensive team in every corner. So I don't know how they fix it, but the idea that any team should be criticized for scoring more goals from set pieces than anyone else is just, it's absurd to me. It's just sour grapes. I get if people don't like it, if it's aesthetically unpleasing, if it's not the football they grew up with, but this isn't the football you grew up with. The ex-player
they grew up with, there had to have been an element of scoring from corners. You look at the 1999 final. Man United scored the winner from a corner. Everyone remembers Trent Alexander-Arnold the other day for Liverpool taking it quickly. I don't think people hate corners. They just hate the fact that we're one of the best at them. You know, nobody really cares about Brentford's long throw. If we were able to do that, which I hope we get that one day, people would have a lot of things to say. And I think unfortunately, that's the way the game is. Like what you said about, you know, the money in the game, the best coaches, everybody's got tactical nous. The margins have gone like that. So you're going to kind of feel like that. By all means, a wider discussion about, is this entertaining? And there probably will be a rule change of some point, even though I think FIFA and them lot have said no. But the game's the game. It's either you bend the rules or adapt, or you keep crying, really. And that goes for every team, including us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree. And I think... I think you have to recognize, and listen, you know, we talked about Arseblog being 24. Like, football 24 years ago was really different than football now. Way different. You know, there was a real gulfing quality between the top teams and the rest of the teams that isn't there. Tactically, it was not the same. You know, you played a 4-4-2. basically everybody played a 4-4-2, and that was kind of it. Somebody would come in and play three at the back, and wing backs, and they would be a defensive team. And I think I said this on one of my own podcasts this week as well, is that football finds a way to react. It always finds a way to react. And the example I used was when Arsenal, maybe post Invincibles, went a little bit more technical, right? Lost some of the physicality, but we brought in these really gifted technical players, Fabregas and Hleb and Rosicki and Wilshere and these kinds of midfielders, right? Who would literally pass the ball in triangles around the opposition. They couldn't get near it.
We used to be sick of it.
Well, what was the reaction to that? The reaction to that was Sam Allardyce and Tony Pulis and these traditional English managers deciding that physical long ball football was a way to counter Arsenal, as well as some horrendous on-pitch violence, was a way of countering Arsenal's technical brilliance. If we can't beat them with the ball, we'll beat the shit out of them when they have the ball or when they don't.
And that's even something we've kind of flown over it. The physicality of our players has improved, and their willingness to do that.
Yeah. So football will always find a way to react. And I think, over the next couple of years, we'll see changes in the game, and we'll look back and say, maybe now you might talk about how, if you kind of really love what might be called in inverted commas the beautiful game, right? Where are the individualists? Everything is so system orientated, everything is so structured, and players have to understand so much about the game, right?
It is like NFL in that regard. You got to remember plays and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. But where are the individuals? Where are the Mavericks? Where are the guys? Your Alexis Sanchez, your Santi Cazorla, these
people that made us fall in love with the game, quote unquote.
Yeah, exactly. I think they'll come around again, because what they might become is a really important way of breaking down teams who continue to sit deep. And if you've got somebody who is given maybe a bit of license to express themselves and to be creative, then that might just be the spark that football needs to go back the other direction. But make no mistake, it will. There's always a correction. Some analyst, exactly. They'll find a way and say, is football a bit more boring now? Yeah. Can we keep scoring from set pieces? Maybe not. But we'll find a way around it. And that's just how the game goes and has always gone. And, we'll see what way it goes. But hopefully it's something we can stay on top of.
And that's what we need to, like even with the inverted fullbacks, it's like Pep does that. Now everyone's done that. I won't quite say it's being phased out the game, but it's almost less important. Like even in recent weeks, Arteta's gone back to traditional fullbacks, Pep the same. So it's just swings and roundabouts. And I genuinely think, regardless of what team you support or better yet manage, if I'm Rob Edwards and I could see, there's a new tactic that Pep or Arteta or whatever manager's introducing, I'd be an idiot not to look into it. Now, I might not be able to apply it in the right way. It might not necessarily help me, but you'd be an idiot not to, okay, that works. How can I get ahead of the game? And that's what happens. That's why I always feel this whole Pep's ruined football, Arteta's ruined football, this one's ruined football. How can one individual, one establishment ruin the whole game? If anything, you're thinking one guy's silly, but then the rest of you are following. So who really is? So it is what it is, man. People are just going to be loyal to their agendas. And if I'm completely honest with you, the more that people get mad about specifically Arsenal set pieces, the more I like to see it. Like I can't lie, man. I really get a kick out of it, man. I enjoy being hated, man. You got a couple of questions, Andrew, man. Big up the chat. Make sure you're subscribing to Andrew's platform. It is in the title, people. JT has said, do you guys think even though the football is more free-flowing last game, the lack of individual quality could be because I think it means our system didn't utilize it enough over the season?
So the football was more, football more free-flowing last game or last season?
You said last game.
I'm not sure I really understand the question. I'm sorry.
Same. And I don't think we were free-flowing last game against Chelsea, to be fair.
No, and I don't think we were free-flowing last season either, because we had a lot of injuries and there were loads of reasons why we couldn't quite find our rhythm. I mean, maybe the season before.
Yeah, if anything.
But yeah, I'm struggling to understand that question. Apologies to JT 09GV. Sorry about that.
I'm not sure what you're saying there, my guy. What I would say is, at some point, I do think Arteta could give a bit of a license to our attackers. But then, if I'm completely honest, as much as I do that, some of the attackers for the whole totality of this Premier League season, they haven't really cut the mustard. The only thing that's really surprised me with our attackers has been when Trossard kind of had his purple patch, but we've kind of reverted back to type with Trossard, with Martinelli. Obviously, Saka's struggling on the goal front. That's actually a question I wanted to ask you as well. Like, what do you make of Saka? Because I do think some of the games he's playing quite well without necessarily scoring. I don't think he's moving as bad as some would say, but I do want to see some goals. I do think he frustrated me a little bit against Chelsea. I think he was great against Spurs. What have you made of Saka?
I mean, I think he's end product wise, there's a lot of room for improvement, right? Based 100%. On what he's done before, based on what we know he's capable of. I think, you know, the numbers aren't as good as they could be. And I think he'd probably be the first to admit that. Generally, I think he remains really important to us. I think he made 4 key passes against Chelsea. Nobody made more. There were a couple of chances he set up that, you know, maybe we should have done better with. I think there was one very 100%. Early for Zubimendi. I think about, you know, maybe games like the Wolves game at home where essentially it was his corner and his cross that ended up with the 2 own goals. He doesn't get
goals have a great partnership.
Yeah, they don't go on the stats board for him, right? But I think he is still playing reasonably well, but I think he can play better and should play better, and hopefully we get more out of him between now and the end of the season. You know, I think there are goals there that I think if we just sort of uncork him again, if you know what I mean, just let him, there's a bit of a blockage, you know, we need to give him the medicine and it all starts flowing again. And hopefully,
and everyone will love him when he starts doing that, man. Like, I mean, I love Saka, innit? I think we got a lot of problems beyond that. Do you know what I would say? Yeah, I do like him in that 10. I did like him in that 10. Well, Odegaard's role. I did like Kai before his injury in that role. That's kind of the different kind of things I wanted to see in isolation from Mikel Arteta, because maybe I'm looking at it too simply, but it just gives opposition something to think about, if I'm honest. And I think people know how we're going to kind of set up, because that's the double-edged sword of what we've been doing that's working. You kind of become an open book. And that's again, if I had to have any criticisms, like my defense, we can improve as a team defensively, but you were right. I've got a couple of questions about my midfield, but generally with my attackers, like we've tried a lot of different individuals in that Odegaard role and nobody's really grabbed the shirt, which leads me to ask you as well, before we get to this question by Rob, big up yourself. What have you made of Eze and Gyökeres as well?
I think Eze has been a bit disappointing generally. Like I was so excited by his signing.
Me too, man. That was the one.
It was amazing, and obviously he scored that hat trick against Spurs, and he scored the goal against Crystal Palace as well. And you're thinking, yes, you know, this is going to be epic, and it just hasn't quite happened for him yet. And I think he is, you know, definitely capable of better. Definitely capable of better. I think what's interesting is that, you know, if we looked at our midfield before, let's say we played with a 6, a deep lying midfielder, and then we played with Declan Rice as the left 8 and Martin Odegaard as the right 8. It feels more this season like we're playing with a double pivot, I guess you would say, with Mendy and Rice, and then Eze is more suited to be a 10 rather than an 8. Playing exactly closer to Gyökeres. I think I think we're probably right to expect a bit more from him in terms of consistency. He might get a run in the team now that Odegaard is out. It seems like he might be out for a little while. So yeah, we kind of need him to step up. Gyökeres has been a better, certainly, in the second part of the season
of the year, at the very least.
Yeah, I think he had some really significant issues in adapting and getting up to speed physically and tactically with this team. I think, you know, I say this with respect. I think he is quite a limited footballer. But if you play to his strengths, I don't mean we should just play to his strengths, but if you can
maximize those limitations.
Yeah, exactly. Get him into those positions where we got him into against Spurs, and he's got the strength and he's got the finishing ability. So I think, you know, we're going to have games where he scores goals, and then the next game he'll look clumsy and won't really have a shot, and we'll all be like,
Kai's got to stay fit.
yeah, what's going on here? So I think he's been better in the second half of the season, and that's good. And I actually hope that improvement can continue between now and the end of the season, because if he can sort of keep that trajectory going that way, then he is on course for a pretty decent goal return at the end of the season. I think he's on.
And then maybe he can only get better next year.
And maybe he gets better next year, or maybe we understand him better next year, or maybe he understands the team better next year as well. So I think, they haven't really set the attack on fire in the way that people would have hoped when they signed. But I think they've also played an important role. Gyökeres had to play a lot in the opening part of the season because of the
life came in very quickly.
Yeah, it really did. So I hope that in these last few months they can really sort of not kick on, but really contribute. So if we're talking in May, if we're sitting here, me and you, at the end of May, and we're trying to assess the signings of last summer, we can say, you know what, took a while, but that was a success.
Yeah.
And I hope that for both of them, because ultimately, if they play well, the team has a better chance of winning, and we have a better chance of winning silverware. So
you mentioned it, yeah, summer signings. Now, what have you made of Hincapié and Mosquera? I only mentioned them because obviously they didn't come in with a lot of like hype around them. Like you said, Eze, he's a Premier League talent. Gyökeres, we all really wanted a striker. Fair enough, Noni didn't set the world alight, but that provided a lot of conversation in itself. I think Mosquera is quite unfortunate that you've got Timber, if you are to be a right back option, in the two centre halves. Bloody good footballer. Hincapié has made that left back spot his own, and you can see why they were brought. But what have you made of them two?
I think Hincapié has progressed over the course of the last couple of months. I think he's settled in pretty well. I have to say, I mean, I know the questions about the injury are completely valid, but I thought Calafiori, until he picked up that first injury, was excellent.
Yeah, he was one of our players of the season.
I thought he was really, really good, and I do wonder if maybe tonight against Brighton we might see him come back in. I think Hincapié has been good. Scored a good goal against Wolves. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough to win us the game, but I think that there has been definite progress. Mosquera, every time I see him, I like him. I think
£13 million, ridiculous.
Yeah, I think, again, not to make comparisons with the injuries, but we talked about this on our podcast and sort of likened him a little bit to Tomiyasu in the sense that he can play right back, he can play right centre back, he can play left centre back. I don't really see him playing left back. I mean, we've enough left backs, so that's
we're overloaded there.
But I think that tactical or that positional versatility is really, really impressive. And every time he's been called on this season, he has looked spot on. He's
had a lot of baptisms of fire, like Bayern Munich, Liverpool. The only time he's been like he's had a game where he could improve, maybe when he was hooked against Newcastle in first half of the season. Great player.
Yeah, really, really good, and he's still so young as well. He's only 20 or 21.
Ridiculous.
So a lot of time for him to develop. I think he's been a great signing.
What do you make of Zubamendi? Because I do think, and again, social media isn't the best sort of sample size, but I like Zubamendi. I think he's done very well. He'd probably be out of the new signings the one for me. I know it's all relative because Mosquera's exceeded in expectations, but I did look at Eze, Gyökeres, and Zubi as you lot are like the main guys, like the game changers. Like with Zubamendi, we've chased you for so long. You've got your first choice pivot in Arteta's mind with him and Rice. Gyökeres, fair enough. We know the hype around the striker, and Eze's just Eze, innit? You can never have too many of those. I do think Zubamendi is. It's not that he's struggling, but he's playing a lot of games. He is looking knackered. I am kind of nervous about generally our midfield options. I know we've got Norgard. I know Kai's fit. I know you've got the option of Miles Lewis-Skelly. And I know there's a couple little tweaks if need be that Arteta could do. But yeah, what have you made of Zubamendi?
I think, until the last month, he would have been, unquestionably up there with the signing of the season.
Yeah, last month's been horrible for him, really.
And there's a very good reason. Nobody's played more minutes than Martin Zubamendi. No player in the Premier League has run further than Martin Zubamendi. So not a single player on any other team has made more or run as far in terms of total kilometers than Martin Zubamendi. Remember as well, in Spain, he would have been used to a winter break. I know it's only a couple of weeks, but it still makes
a difference.
Because what do you do in that period in England? You play a ton of games, when typically he would have had a rest. So I think you have to, if you're trying to assess Zubamendi, you can say his recent form has not been as good as it should have been, and maybe we'd like to see a bit more from him in terms of helping us control games. But I think you also have to acknowledge that there are reasons for that. It's not because his quality is like, he didn't just have a purple patch. I think what we saw in the first 6 months of the season was
With
the real
Martin.
Zubimendi. There were a couple of mistakes in there, not great mistakes. Okay, that can happen to the best players. It can happen. But I think generally speaking, we saw who Martin Zubimendi is in the opening 6 months of the season. And now we're seeing a Martin Zubimendi who is running on fumes a little bit. And we don't have the options with no Marino, no Odegaard.
Kai, we kind of have to play a cute game with him being fit.
So I do think that if people are being critical of Zubimendi's form of late, I understand it, but don't ignore why. That would be the only thing I'd say.
And I would say the only thing I would say with Zubi is something like, I'm not necessarily, it's going to sound dumb, but I'm comfortable with him against City, for example. When it's like a typical chess match, you know, Arteta versus Pep, I think that's your bag. When it's the typical British games where it's end to end, it's kind of crazy, Sunderland away, Aston Villa away, I think that's where Zubi struggled. And I think that's just something you had to go through. I know people must have told these players about the Premier League. He knows it himself. But I think when you're there living and breathing it, that's when you're like you said, with his mistakes, on one hand, it does happen with those kind of players, but you can hold that. But the positives far outweigh the negatives. The only thing with me is, like you said, he's played a lot of games. Rice the same. I'm a bit concerned about our midfield, if that makes sense, which leads me to ask you, what do you make of Norgard's lack of being used? Because I'm not one of them fans. I always have a bit of pushback on my channel. I don't quite subscribe to he should have way more starts. Granted, there's a start here or there for him. Where I do agree with people is the substitute appearances, kind of like how he came on against Chelsea. But where are you at with Norgard, man? Did you think he'd play a lot more of a role, or is this kind of what you expected?
I didn't think he'd play a lot more in Premier League terms. I thought he would have more minutes.
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
a few starts here and there. But I've found it hard to square the circle of, like, if we don't have a great game, that somehow using Christian Norgard would have been the thing to make it better. I mean, I think what you would say, going back to my previous point, is maybe Zubimendi is not as knackered right now if Norgard had played a few more minutes in other games. Maybe. I think the fact that we've also had quite a lot of tight games means that Arteta has sort of erred on the side of caution, and tried to keep the structure on the pitch as much as possible. If you've got Rice and Zubimendi on the pitch, like, who do you take off there for Norgard? It wasn't his
moments at Chelsea.
Yeah, like, it wasn't his fault against Chelsea, right? Because collectively against 10 men, we were not great. But he came on, and in 20 minutes, he made 2 passes. When he came on, I was like, okay, this is good. Experienced player. It's a shame Rice has to go off. Got an experienced Premier League and international player. Put your foot on the ball. Make 20 passes. Just keep the ball circulating. Keep the ball away from just calm. Like I said, it's not entirely his fault, because I think collectively there was a wider issue. But things like that just sort of give me pause for thought, that if that's what's happened there, maybe that explains to some extent Mikel Arteta's reluctance to use him or depend on him in key moments. So I don't think it's the biggest issue we have this season, and I think there'll probably be minutes for him to play between now and the end of the season. And you just never know with players. Someone can step up and become a bit of a hero in the final part of the season, and you don't expect them to be. I don't necessarily think it's going to be him, but I'm not that surprised that his role has been quite peripheral, to be honest.
Let me be devil's advocate. Do you think Arteta trusts him? Do you think Arteta trusts all of his squad? We know, as much as people say it's a squad game and many people have contributed and done well, I don't think this is crime. There naturally is hierarchies, not just with Arteta, with everybody else. He's got his own ethos and things. But do you think he fully trusts Norgard? Do you think he fully trusts his squad? Because we are getting into that point of the season where everyone's got a part to play.
I don't know. It's too difficult for me to say. If he did
because we're not
absolutely implicitly trust him, he probably would have played a bit more. So do we read into the fact that he hasn't played that there's some issue there? I'm not sure it's a personal issue or anything like that. But, remember as well, it took Declan. How many times did you hear Declan Rice say, God almighty, there's a lot to learn?
There's a lot
When
to
you come
take
to
in. Yeah,
Arsenal, you've got to learn this, that, and the other.
it's a culture shock.
Yeah, maybe Norgard has taken more time than you would expect to get up to speed with that kind of stuff. I'm not sure. I just think that there is, with all due respect to him, quite a gap between, let's say, him and Zubimendi or him and Declan Rice.
Even the man who technically replaced in part in the summer.
Exactly. And I'm not sure that gap is quite as big anywhere else in the squad. You know, even let's say between Raya and Kepa, I don't think it's that big. You know, looking at other positions, Gyökeres and Jesus, flip a coin on that one. Martinelli, Trossard, you know, Saka, I think is better than Madueke, but the Madueke gap is not as big. You know, so I think it's maybe the only area of the pitch where the gap between first choice and backup and squad player is maybe bigger than you would like it to be.
Definitely need to buy a midfielder in the summer. That and a left winger has to be top of Berta's agenda or feature quite prominently on the recruitment list, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm not ready for a summer transfer chat yet, man.
Neither am I. Like right now, we're engulfed in the season and ingrained in the season. A bit of a different question. Rob, I apologize for leaving your question up there for so long. Andrew, when you look back on 24 years, what stands out as highlights for you in brackets and with James in doing a blog/channel? Thank you for your work. Been following you forever.
Thank you, Rob. I get, for me, it would always be the things that involve the community, for want of a better word, the Arsenal fan community, you know. So when we do live events, live podcasts, when you get all those people in a room and you can sort of share an evening with them and chat afterwards and all of those kinds of things, you know, is amazing. You know, that sort of, you might get, if you spend a lot of time online, an idea about people that isn't necessarily representative of most people, right? You know, the way people interact in real life is not how people interact online.
1,000,000%.
People will say, and they might get bored of saying, go outside, touch grass, all that kind of stuff. But there's truth to that. And when you know, go outside, touch grass, sit down and talk to a normal person. And I think for me, you know, whether it's in London or Dublin or, you know, I've been lucky enough to go to many great places in the world and do events and meet Arsenal fans from all over the world, to see that the love and the passion for the club is the same, whether you're walking down the Holloway Road or whether you're walking down Fifth Avenue or whether you're walking down wherever it is in Australia or Asia. The passion and the support for the club is unparalleled. It's
crazy wherever you are in the world.
It's brilliant. And that for me, I think, is, you know, the most amazing thing, you know, is to be able to connect with fans and you know, be fortunate enough to be able to go and do that as well. You know, that the blog and the podcast has given me the platform, if you like, to be able to go and do those things, you know, so it's amazing. Yeah.
It's heartwarming, and that's what football's about. Like, you know, again, even the like the negativity and the people that need to touch grass is one thing, but even the positive messages, I'm sure you get on your blog and your channels and whatnot, it's great. But it is, I do share that when you're outside and like in the real world, it's not overwhelming. That's the wrong word, but it just fills your heart with niceness, isn't it? Knowing to see people, whether they agree with you, disagree with you, they share the same passion for the club, and fundamentally, they might not agree with everything you say, but they like the community, as the words you use. Correct. That kind of stuff, man. And you can't put a price on that. It's essentially priceless, man.
Exactly. You know, you go somewhere and you have a beer and you meet another Arsenal fan, and it's just, you know, there's nothing quite like it.
You can't put a price on it, man. So yeah, people, make sure you're subscribing to Andrew's platform. You know, great work over there is in the title. If you want to be lazy, I can't imagine you're not. Another question from Richard: do you think we should lean on our defensive reinforcements more going into our last 9 fixtures? Ooh.
Does that mean, I wonder, during games, or, you know, when we're picking teams to start games? Because, like,
good counterpoint.
Unless you have no choice, how do you not start Saliba and Gabriel?
You tell me, because Mansfield's the only one I'm not trying to see them play. If I'm honest,
the same. I don't want to even know the names of the Arsenal players who are playing against Mansfield. You know what I mean? Just bring out the double barrel boys from Hale End. None of us have ever heard from or heard of before.
Facts, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so just get them out there and leave the big boys at home. I think it is difficult, because listen, if you have Ben White and Jurriën Timber both fit, I think there's a good chance you can timeshare their minutes, right? Because the quality is
And we need to, man. Ben
yeah,
White needs to stay fit.
yeah. Similarly, like I said, I think Calafiori might come in tonight. Calafiori and Capier, Lewis Skelly. You can pick those players, but I think unless you have to make a change with Saliba and Gabriel, you just push those guys, And in game, it's much more difficult, to make defensive changes. You don't want to destabilize your back four unless you absolutely have to. So,
Exactly.
I guess my answer to that question is no, unless we have to. But certainly in games where it might be possible to rotate a little, like if we're 4-0 up tonight after we score from 4 corners, maybe you can make some changes. Maybe you can make Saliba
last half hour come off, man.
right? Exactly. You can make those changes. But if it's tight and if it's tough going and if you need to really dig in, then you got to get your best guys on the pitch. And
I'm with you in that. I don't want to sound disingenuous here, but if life was fair, we'd all have a lot less. I don't want players to play for the sake of it. Now, granted, I hope we win today against Brighton. I do feel games like today are kind of games where Arteta's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. Because if he doesn't, if we win, it's great. But if you make changes and we lose, people are going to say, why are you making changes? If you play the same lineup, oh, why didn't you make changes? Defense, that's the one big area of our team where we're kind of cool. Unless it's necessity, as you said, loan management or like maybe to even see out a game, I don't really want that. Like, because their mistakes could hurt you. And like you kind of lightly touched on, and I could tie in what you said about Norgard. Sometimes when you make changes in the pursuit of kind of putting a plaster over things, you actually kind of destabilize your team. That's one thing, because I always cry when I'm watching the games Arteta make changes, but there are times the changes have the reverse effect. So I don't want anybody, not just our defense, like players can't play for the sake of playing. If you want to do that, you need to go play Sunday League. Best players out there, get the job done. As Andrew said there, if you put the game to bed in the first half, you scored 3, 4, 5 goals, by all means, everyone get a rest. I'm even on Kepa coming off the bench, but that's not the case, man. You got another question, Andrew, on the topic of defenders, man. What do either of you think about Calafiori right back? In my opinion, we could do with a left-footed right back to be a difference from Timber in the final third. Bit too radical for me personally, but where you at? I'm not really under.
It wouldn't be for me, I have to say. I think there's a reason why you almost never, ever, ever, ever see a left-footed player at right back. The last time I can remember it happening was actually Calafiori. I think he played a half there at one point.
I'm sure he did that against PSG in the league phase last year.
Yeah, maybe so. But generally speaking, no, I wouldn't be on board with that at all. I think we have other options at right back. We've got Timber. Ben White's out for the moment, unfortunately, but we can play Christian Mosquera there, who came in and did a really good job.
Really good job.
The North London derby. So for me, I'd rather see Calafiori in his sort of more natural position on the left.
Yeah, I mean, and you know what? To be fair, Lindsay, if Arteta did it and it worked, you and Arteta know something we don't. But for me, bit too radical, especially at this day and age, man. You know, if you want to try it for a part against Mansfield, provided we put the game to bed, go do your thing. But nah, this is a good question from JT. Do you think we should aim towards a club model more like City, where we cycle through players faster to find solutions in the market, or trust their development like we have done, or somewhere in the middle? So I think he's thinking like City, they'll buy a player, it don't really work out, they'll buy another one. That's not really going to quite be the case for us. But where are you at, Andrew, with that?
Well, I mean, I think there's a reason why City can do that. They can just sort of throw away money. Remember who was it? Calvin Phillips, right? 50-odd million they paid for that guy.
He said his name, I forgot him.
Now he's playing for Sheffield United. It doesn't matter for Manchester City.
Centre-half, so 300 grand a week.
Yeah, that's the other thing about Man City is the wage spend. People look at their transfer fees and go, they don't really pay that much more than anyone else for transfer. It's not about transfer fees. It's about wages. It's about the overall package that these players get, So I don't know about cycling through. I think we have spent pretty well. I think we could spend better. But you have to accept that we're a different beast than Manchester City, and almost every team, maybe apart from Newcastle, who haven't been able to show it of late.
Yeah, they're kind of crippled from being able to flex their muscles.
They're a different beast, from Manchester City. And listen, isn't it funny that all of this focuses on Arsenal and corners and set pieces, and a team that has had 115 charges hanging over them for years and years and years and years, nobody says a word about it. They're just
Nobody
bored of
says a
it.
word. We're getting in trouble for winning games. That's one thing
Yeah,
that annoys
exactly.
me, Andrew. Like, we're
We're
getting more
scoring
smoke for
goals.
beating Chelsea and City last year.
Exactly. You know, I wish sometimes
Crazy.
football. I get it. It's the headlines, it's the clickbait, it's the narrative, all that kind of stuff.
Engagement.
But come on, let's get our house in order. Let's get our priorities in order. If you want to talk about the problems that football has, Arsenal scoring some goals from corners is far, far, far from the biggest problem football has right now.
And that's the problem, but it doesn't fit the narrative because as soon as people hear Arsenal, we're foaming at the mouth and carrying on people. We've got a couple more questions before we're gonna have to let Andrew go, people. So I'm gonna try and cipher through these very quickly. So if you do have some questions, get them in as soon as possible. Uncomfortable says Jonathan, I'm just gonna call you Jonathan. Apologies. Uncomfortable. Should we throw the FA Cup? Mentally, a lot to be in 4 comps. Where you at with that? I don't want to throw anything personally. I know we're not going to win them all, but yeah.
I don't think you can create a culture at a club that drives you to success and also throw a competition. I just don't think
the wrong
you can do it.
message.
I think what maybe might happen if we get through the next round, which we probably will because we're playing Mansfield, even with the double barrel Hale End boys all in the team, we should beat Mansfield. Maybe, depending on the draw that we get for the quarterfinal, and how things are going in the Premier League and how things are going in the Champions League, your team selection for the next round of the FA Cup might not be, let's say, the strongest.
We're going to have to be diplomatic about it.
Yeah, you might have a big game in the Premier League that you've got to prioritize. You have to prioritize that game because that's just the way it goes this season, you know? So it's not a case of throwing it, but maybe recognizing the priority when it comes to your team selections.
You just have to be a bit cute and clever, and there will be that. Like, even when we played Manchester City in the final, both of us got a big game, midweek in the Champions League, and then obviously a final. Fast forward a week or so, then obviously we're playing each other. This is where Arteta and the boys earn their money, innit? Like, this is where us fans, our job is just to support. It's the business end, as cliche as it is. Last question before we let Andrew get out of here. How big do you think should be the say Arteta has on transfers versus Berta going forward? Bearing in mind, it's a collaborative thing, if I'm honest. But
I think it will remain collaborative. You know, I don't think there's any way that Andrea Berta is going to start buying players for Arsenal and telling Mikel Arteta, this is the player you're getting. If Mikel Arteta doesn't want that player is not coming to Arsenal.
You're not going to be at the club.
Simple as that. Whether you think that's right or wrong, that is the way it's going to be. And I think the sort of normal sporting director model at clubs across Europe is clubs buy the players, manager, coach, whoever has to deal with the players. At Arsenal, I think the manager dictates to the sporting director who he wants, or at least what profile of player he wants.
Yeah, and then they might come up with that little shortlist.
They might come up with a shortlist, and Arteta, I'm sure, will have a preference out of those players. You know, so I don't think it's healthy anyway to sort of foist players on a manager if he doesn't want that kind of player or doesn't want that player at all. That happened a lot at Atletico Madrid, by the way. There were players brought in and Diego Simeone looked at them and went, I'm not playing him.
Not for me, not my cup of tea.
He's not my player. I'm not playing him. And players who cost a lot of money. So you can't do that. That's not a smart way to run your football club. I think the best way is for, you know, a real team effort, not just between manager and sporting director, but across the whole recruitment department. I think that's the healthiest way to operate.
I think that is the best, healthiest way to operate. And like, there's been a lot of changes even in this season, like in the backroom stuff. So it'd be interesting to see like what changes, like what impact those changes have and what we're doing in the summer. But as you said, like we're in the season. We just need to get it done. So my last question, Andrew, before I let you get out of here, prediction. I'm going 2-1 Arsenal, nervy 2-1 Arsenal tonight. Where are you at?
Oh God,
nail biting stuff.
I hate predictions. I really do.
I joined a club.
I don't know. I think 3-0 Arsenal.
But I hope you're right. I hope you're right. That is what we want because I really need 9 from 9. Like, well, obviously the 2 London derbies and then obviously beating Brighton. And then we can just enjoy, cool off against Mansfield. And then we get it all over again, starting against Leverkusen, man. We're in 4 comps. We're in a final of 1. We're in a dogfight for the Premier League, as Matt Turner would say. Let's bring 1 or 2 trophies home as a minimum, man, or maybe even more. But Arsenal fans, just keep the faith, man. You know, keep perspective when we win, when we lose, keep your feet on the floor, left foot in front of the right, and hopefully there's a parade in May. Andrew, it's always brilliant to have you on the platform, and especially with everything at Arsenal at the moment. It's lovely to have balanced fans' opinions and whatnot. Where can people find you? Not that I imagine they need to know, because they should know already.
Arseblog.com is where everything operates out of. So you can get us there or download the apps, you know, for iPhone and Android. You can find all our stuff there as well, you know. So we're out there on the web.
Exactly. And make sure you're going and doing that, people. Don't just listen to people doing that. Go and do that. Again, the title it's in the title, people. Go subscribe, go drop a WDG. And Andrew, I've taken up far too much of your time. As usual, appreciate you, brother. The Gunners, in it.
Thanks, man.
So on that note, we're out. Chat as well. Couldn't do it without you. Like, comment, subscribe. Everyone enjoy their afternoon. Peace. You always just